the biggest one in the NFL.
Over Andy Reid?
We always see bigger. I'm looking at that because he actually has like flip-ups on top of the plays. So it's like 2 layers of plays on his chart. Stidham is rolling out, and it just stops the clock. 24 seconds left, and it's 4th down, so they're going to go for a field goal here. And I don't see where is the ball right now? Let's see. It's going to be in the 40-something range here.
Let's see.
Will Lutz comes out.
Yeah, remember, he had him in New Orleans. I think he's money. He had him in New Orleans. Like, this guy's missed like 1 or 2 kicks in his postseason career.
Okay, so this one is, let's see where the ball is going to be set. 4
kicks all in. Yeah, 57. He's good. That's his long.
No, that was his long.
I know, but 54. This is
a
money.
54.
Money.
All right, 54-yard attempt, and the kick is missed.
Whoa!
He is now 11 for 17 in his postseason career.
Okay, so Will Lutz, by the way, there is some wind out there, folks. It's about 15-mile-an-hour winds. That looked like it was going to hook in. Instead, it veered right, it was a miss.
That's the first kick call I missed all season.
Yeah, well, that was
That's the first one I missed all season, man, and he hooked that bad boy.
Well, he tried it. No, he pushed it.
It's not a lot of wind, though, man, Steve.
Well, you don't know how the wind is, but that looked like it was going to hook in. And
he knows it the minute it hit it.
All right, so somehow...
Who are...
Yes, it is. Welcome into Warriors Live. Mark Randy with you in our 95.7 The Game studios. Warriors Live, as always, is presented by Xfinity, your home court advantage, brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. Well, originally, we were not supposed to have basketball today. I was planning on lounging at home, watching football all day. But events outside of our control postponed yesterday's Warriors game. They are now playing a back-to-back tonight and tomorrow in Minnesota. It's Warriors versus Timberwolves today and tomorrow. There's plenty of basketball things to talk about, and we will get to that. This is Warriors Live after all. We were going to break down this matchup. We'll tell you what to look for. We'll tell you the injury report, and there is a pretty big TBD on the injury report, by the way. Steph Curry is questionable. We have an update on Jonathan Kuminga. The Warriors finally gave us and the entire public the results of his MRI for the hyperextended knee that he suffered in Dallas a few days ago. We will get to all of that here on Warriors Live, trust me. But again, the reason why we're talking about Warriors basketball on 95.7 The Game today and not 24 hours ago is because a tragedy in Minnesota. And if you're not following the news, I'm just going to read a chunk of a piece from the Associated Press about the NBA's decision to postpone yesterday's Warriors-Timberwolves game to today. So again, I'm just reading straight from an article written by the Associated Press. Quote, the NBA game between the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Golden State Warriors was postponed on Saturday afternoon following another fatal shooting by a federal officer in Minneapolis. The league announced the decision was made to prioritize, this is a quote from the NBA, to, quote, prioritize the safety and security of the Minneapolis community, end quote, after 37-year-old Alex Preddy was killed in a confrontation with officers on a street in a commercial district less than 2 miles from Target Center, the downtown arena where the Timberwolves play. With the crowd of protesters growing around the shooting site on Saturday, the Minnesota National Guard was assisting local police to try to keep the peace. Thousands of people marched through downtown on Friday with the air temperature well below zero in protest of the presence and tactics of the federal force that swelled to about 3,000 officers in the Twin Cities area this month as part of the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Less than 3 weeks ago, 37-year-old Renee Good was fatally shot in her car as she drove away from a group of officers following a confrontation. The Timberwolves held a moment of silence for Good before their game the following night. That is the end of the chunk that I'm reading from that Associated Press article on the NBA's decision to postpone yesterday's Warriors game in the wake of, again, as the Associated Press wrote, quote, another fatal shooting by a federal officer in Minneapolis. The Warriors were in Minnesota after their game on Thursday in Dallas. They got in on Friday. They were ready to play the game yesterday, but they are the visitors in this entire situation, and you're going to hear from Steve Kerr in just a second. But essentially, the Warriors were comfortable leaving the decision up to the Timberwolves and up to the NBA, and they were perfectly good with postponing this game here today. Speaking of Steve Kerr, we're going to hear a little bit from Steve Kerr, and then we will talk about this basketball game coming up. But Steve is one of the more well-respected voices when it comes to things like this. It is unfortunate that that is the case because there are a lot of these things that he has commented on. Here's Steve Kerr, first of all, on the decision to postpone yesterday's game and play it today in Minnesota.
I got a call from Chris Finch during our meeting, coaches meeting yesterday. I had already gotten a couple of texts from Mike Dunleavy telling me that the league was thinking about postponing the game, and then Chris called me. We talked, and I told him we didn't have a great sense of anything, that we were really going to lean on them. It's their city, and I talked to Joe Ingles. He called me kind of to tell me that all their players were feeling really uneasy about everything. And so I told Chris and Joe, we trust you guys, we trust the league, whatever makes the most sense. So ultimately, obviously the game was postponed. I totally agree with the decision. Everything should be about safety and concern for not only the players and the fans, but everybody here in Minneapolis with what's going on.
All right, that's Steve Kerr on the decision to postpone the game, and he said he agrees 100% with that decision. Here's more Steve Kerr on everything that's happened in Minneapolis this month and how he's felt it since they got into town on Friday. Here's more Steve Kerr.
I've been following everything. It's very sad. This has always been a great stop on the NBA tour. I love the city of Minneapolis. The people here are wonderful. And it's very sad what's happening. I feel for the city. There's a pall that has been cast over the city. You can feel it, and a lot of people are suffering. Obviously, loss of life is the number one concern. Those families will never get their family members back. And when all the unrest settles down, whenever that is, those family members won't be returning home, and that's devastating.
Well said from Steve. And then one more, and then we will start previewing this basketball game because we do have a job to do, and we are going to talk basketball. One more from Steve Kerr. This is a bit of an extended cut, so stay with us here. Steve Kerr just talking about, in general, what's happening in the country right now. Here's Steve Kerr offering his thoughts.
My concern as an American, we're not perfect. We never have been perfect, but I think our ideals have been in the right place for a long time, our values. And, I think no matter what side of the aisle you stand on, I think remembering the values that come with the Constitution, that come with citizenship, the values of looking after each other are so important right now just because of the extremism that we can feel from all over the place. People are so angry, and it's sort of, there should be an appeal to our better angels to look after one another and to recognize what's happening. We're being divided by media for profit, by misinformation. There's so much out there that is really difficult for all of us to sort of reconcile. And so you have to, in times like these, you have to lean on values and who you are and who you want to be, either as an individual or as a country. And I think that's the biggest thing, and that's what's so sad about all this is, like, we're at each other's throats right now. You can't just say I'm right and the other person's wrong. Not within this current climate of nonstop news flooding at us. It's hard to decipher what's real and what's not, what's true and what's not true. People arguing over the exact same video and saying this happened, no, that happened. It is a confusing time to be alive and to be an American. And so what I would appeal to everyone is to remember what our Constitution stands for, what our values are, and what that means to how we treat each other and our fellow citizens.
All right. That's Steve Kerr pregame on everything going on specifically in Minneapolis and what's happened the last, less than 3 weeks. And, why the NBA postponed the Warriors-Timberwolves game yesterday, and now the Warriors are playing a back-to-back today and tomorrow in Minnesota. Okay, this is Warriors Live. Mark Randy with you. We're presented by Xfinity, your home court advantage, brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. As we we are blessed working in sports. It is an escape, and we're going to attempt to put all of that behind us and start talking some basketball here for the next number of hours on 95.7 The Game. Timberwolves versus Warriors. The T-Wolves 27-18. They're 7th in the Western Conference, 15-7 at home this year. The Warriors 25-21, 8th in the Western Conference. So these teams are right next to each other in the standings, but there is a pretty decent gap. It is a 2.5 game gap. Minnesota ahead of the Warriors. It honestly could be even worse, but Minnesota has lost 4 consecutive games. They began the season kind of cold, 10-8 for their standards, not great. They then went 17-6 in their next 23 games. They were at one point 27-14. They have since, though, lost 4 games in a row. They lost in Houston in a 5-point game. They lost in San Antonio in a 3-point game. They lost in Utah in a 5-point game. And they lost versus Chicago in a 5-point game. So their 4 straight losses are all by 5 points or fewer. Doesn't mean that they're playing terrible basketball, but they have found ways to lose all 4 of those games. They are playing, again, not terrible basketball, but in terms of a losing streak, their longest losing streak of the season. We'll see if the Warriors can keep that up and make it a 5-game losing streak. Of course, of the T-Wolves, they got Ant Edwards, one of the best offensive players in the NBA, averaging a tick under 30 points per game. He's shooting over 40% from downtown, by the way. He's shooting 49.5% from the field and 40.6% from downtown. You might be thinking, well, he's on pace, maybe to, not on pace, but he's darn near shooting 50% from the field and 40% from downtown. Steph Curry is one of the few members of the 50-40-90 club, where over the course of an entire season, you shoot 50% from the field, 40% from deep, and 90% from the line. And Edwards is nearly there, except for from the free throw line. He's shooting sub 80% from the free throw line this season, so he's not going to be a member of the 50-40-90 club, but the fact that he's shooting 49.5% from the field and 40.6% from downtown, that is pretty darn impressive, and he's one of the most explosive athletes in the NBA as well. So he is incredibly difficult to play against, is Anthony Edwards. In addition to Ant, of course, the T-Wolves, they have Julius Randle, who averages over 22 points per game. Jaden McDaniels, over 15 points per game. Naz Reid, who seems to always hurt the Warriors, nearly 15 points per game. Former Warrior Dante DiVincenzo, 13 points per game. And then Rudy Gobert, one of the arch nemesis of Draymond Green, at 11 points per game. So this is a team in the T-Wolves who have 6 players averaging in double-digit scoring per game. This is a difficult team to defend against, and we'll see what the Warriors can do against them. The Warriors come in again at 25-21. 8th in the Western Conference. They are 8-14 so far on the road this season. They've been on a bit of a streaky stretch. They were 4-1 to begin the season, 1-4. Then they went 4-1. Then they went 4-9. They then went 12-4 over their next 16 games, but since then 0-2 in their last 2. That, of course, coincides with Jimmy Butler's torn ACL. The Warriors got blown out at home versus Toronto on Tuesday, followed up in Dallas with a narrow loss, a game in which they led in the fourth quarter, ultimately lose 123-115 in that game, and we'll see if the Warriors can get their first win post-Jimmy Butler ACL. They're not good without Jimmy Butler this season. Butler has now missed 8 games. The Warriors are 2-6 in the 8 games without Jimmy Butler this season. Various reasons why. The last 2, of course, the ACL tear. Before that, some load management, a couple of minor things here and there. But 2-6 without Jimmy Butler this season. They're 23-15 when Jimmy Butler plays, and that number will stay 23-15 the rest of the season because, of course, Jimmy Butler is out for the season. Let's get to our injury report here on 95.7 The Game, and as I say that, we do have an update because what I was getting ready to tell you was that Stephen Curry was questionable. He was going to get a warm-up in pregame, and then the Warriors were going to decide. We have an update, and I'll get to that in just a second. But our injury report, as always, is brought to you by Boxer & Gerson, Northern California's premier workers' compensation law firm, helping injured workers get their lives back for over 40 years. For more information, visit boxerlaw.com. Okay, first, for the Warriors, Steph Curry, as I mentioned, was listed as questionable with knee soreness. Steve Kerr said pregame that Curry felt a bit of an issue with his knee yesterday while they were doing some light work before their scheduled game, which again got postponed. He said that Steph is feeling better today, but the plan was for him to warm up pregame before deciding if he'll be able to play today. He has warmed up pregame, and he is available to play. So Steph Curry will play and is good to go today for the Warriors in Minnesota. Also good to go is DeAnthony Melton and Al Horford. They were both on the injury report, but are both available to play. Melton listed as left knee injury management and Al Horford left toe injury management. That just means to me the Warriors were deciding which game of the back-to-back they wanted Melton and Horford to play. If it's listed as, an injury management, that essentially means there's nothing serious going on. We're just putting something up there because we got to put something up there if they're on the injury report. And we know Melton and Horford both don't play in back-to-backs. That might change at some point this season for Melton, not for Horford. But this means they're playing today, and both of those guys will not be available tomorrow in Minnesota for the Warriors. But Steph Curry is good to go for Golden State in this one. Jonathan Kuminga, however, dealing with left knee soreness. He is out. Jonathan Kuminga will not play today. We knew that he was not going to play in yesterday's game, but we weren't really sure what that meant if he was going to play in today's game. We did, though, get an update from the Warriors a little more than an hour ago. I'm going to read directly from the release from the Warriors themselves. Quote, Golden State Warriors forward Jonathan Kuminga, who exited Thursday's game at Dallas with 3 minutes and 52 seconds remaining in the second quarter due to a sore left knee, underwent an MRI on Friday. The MRI confirmed that Kuminga has a bone bruise as a result of the hyperextension injury. His progress will be monitored and a reevaluation date will be determined in the coming days. End quote. Okay, so that's the update from the Warriors on Jonathan Kuminga. A number of things there. I know there was confusion about whether he was going to get an MRI. Steve Kerr said post-game Thursday in Dallas he would get an MRI. Then a Warriors spokesperson came out and said, well, we haven't really officially decided, or Jonathan Kuminga hasn't officially decided yet if he's going to get an MRI. We do know he got the MRI on Friday, and now we know the results of the MRI show a bone bruise because of that hyperextension injury. The biggest piece of news here, though, for Jonathan Kuminga and for the Warriors is we don't have a reevaluation date yet. And let me just explain what a reevaluation date means. A reevaluation date means the next time we're going to learn about Jonathan Kuminga's status, not the day that we expect him to come back. And the Warriors have said, quote, a reevaluation date will be determined in the coming days. Now, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a long time until the reevaluation date is determined, but we're not talking about the reevaluation date will be in the coming days. The decision about when the reevaluation date will come in the coming days. So this, I talked about it a little bit post-game on Thursday, and I put it out on Twitter, and I got a couple of angry Warrior fans telling me, well, it's a minor injury. Kuminga will be back ASAP. Don't worry. It very well could be a minor injury. A bone bruise in your knee feels like it's going to take some time to recover, but even if it was a minor injury, and I do not blame Kuminga for this at all either, by the way. With all of the factors that are playing in here, the trade deadline is now less than 2 weeks away. It's February 5th, Thursday, February 5th at noon Pacific time. With the fact that He's clearly still not feeling great about the organization and the way that his career has been handled, and I don't blame him for feeling that way. He has every right to feel that way with the fact that he's now being asked to play, but then suffered, at best, a minor injury. There's just a lot of different factors here besides the injury. If Kuminga's goal is to get out of Golden State as soon as he possibly can, or at least give him the best chance of leaving Golden State, which I personally think is his goal, you get the wake-up call of this minor injury, and I personally would not be incredibly eager to get back on the floor. So who knows? There's a chance that we've seen Jonathan Kuminga play his last game as a Warrior. There's also a chance this keeps him out maybe until the trade deadline. A trade doesn't happen, and then he returns and starts playing again. I don't know. All I'm going to say is this just being the injury by itself, that's not the case. There's a lot of other factors in play here. That's all I'll say. Don't know exactly what it's going to mean, but the vague language of this update from the Warriors, I think, confirms that there's something more in play here than just the bone bruise injury. A reevaluation date will be determined in the coming days. Normally, the Warriors will say something as in the reevaluation date, or he'll be reevaluated again in a week, or he'll be reevaluated again before the weekend, or something like that is what the Warriors normally say. Now they said, quote, a reevaluation date will be determined in the coming days. That just feels like different than normal, which makes me think there's something a little bit more going on here, but we shall see. So no Jonathan Kuminga. Steph Curry, DeAnthony Melton, and Al Horford are good to go. Still no Seth Curry, who's, of course, dealing with left sciatic nerve irritation, and Jimmy Butler remains out as well, of course, for the rest of the season. Meanwhile, for the Timberwolves, Terrence Shannon Jr., second-year guard from Illinois, he's out dealing with a left foot strain. He's only played in 22 games this season, not a normal, key rotation piece, averages a little more than 4 points per game. He's the only Timberwolf of note that is out in this one today. This is Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity, your home court advantage, brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. Let's get to our Take It to the Bank prediction, which is brought to you by Fremont Bank, here for you, here for good. With the Kuminga absence, paired, of course, with Jimmy Butler's absence, I'm going to look at DeAnthony Melton and his points total. I'll go over 12.5 points for DeAnthony Melton today. No Jimmy Butler, as I mentioned. No Jonathan Kuminga. That means plenty of opportunities for Melton. I think it's pretty clear, specifically without Kuminga today, and even probably with Kuminga, once Butler went down, DeAnthony Melton became the Warriors' second-best option offensively behind Steph Curry. He's their second-best scorer, and he's one of a few Warriors now that have the ability to drive, attack their defender off the dribble, and score at or around the rim. Not a lot of Warriors can do that. When you take Jimmy Butler away, it's Steph Curry, it's DeAnthony Melton, and it's Pat Spencer, and that's about it. And I have a lot more confidence in the minutes that Melton's going to get today than the minutes that Pat Spencer's going to get today. So I'll go over 12.5 points for DeAnthony Melton. He's been scoring the basketball really, really well of late. And if the Warriors have any chance of being in this game, they're going to need DeAnthony Melton to hit the over, because, he was up at 22 points on Thursday in Dallas, and the Warriors still won that game. Steph also scored 38. Those two combined for 60 points, and the Warriors still lost that game in Dallas. So we shall see, but I'll go over 12.5 points for DeAnthony Melton today. Also, we've got a special treat here on 95.7 The Game today, because with the moving parts of what was happening with the postponement of the game yesterday to today, Tim Roy, you will not hear him on 95.7 The Game today, but if you are watching on NBC Sports Bay Area, you will see him along with Kalena Azubuike on the television side for today's Warriors and T-Wolves game, and that means we get Kevin Dana here on 95.7 The Game. He's coming up in just a handful of minutes. He'll take you the rest of the way until tip-off. Then I will be back for Warriors wrap-up to break this one down, to talk about this Warriors versus T-Wolves game. It's game one of a mini series. It's a back-to-back in Minnesota today, and then tomorrow, Warriors versus Wolves. This is a really important matchup because these are two teams that are 7 and 8 in the Western Conference standings, and if the Warriors want any chance to sneak out of the play-in, I know things are tough right now post Jimmy Butler, they got to at least win one of these two games versus the T-Wolves. So that's what's coming up here on 95.7 The Game. Tim Roy on TV, Kevin Dana right here on 95.7 The Game, and he will take over after this short break coming up in just a little bit here on 95.7 The Game. All right. This has been Warriors Live, presented by Xfinity, your home court advantage, brought to you by Xfinity. Watch all your favorite teams all in one place. Xfinity, imagine that. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Mark Randy, signing off of Warriors Live. Again, I will be back for Warriors Wrap-Up to break this one down. It's Dubs, it's T-Wolves, Warriors basketball with Kevin Dana, coming up next right here on 95.7 The Game.
You know what? Let's throw a party this year for the